and welcome to the Sunday Recap Podcast. I'm Big Italy 42. He is Jason Gilbo at Jason Gilbo 11 on Twitter. And we're talking about all the action starting with Thursday to Sunday. I mean, everything happens. Obviously, we saw Thursday night. If you played the Thursday contest, you didn't play Rob Gronkowski, you lose. And if you found a way to win, show me how you found a way to win without that. We did see quite a few tight ends show up, some cheap guys in week one as well on Sunday. So we'll get to those in a minute. But we'll go ahead and start things off here on Sunday. You mentioned here in your article at the beginning of the week, everyone's waiting for the first touchdowns to be scored, and it seemed like Travis Kelce had two. I don't know if it was the actual timing he had two before anyone else, but it kind of seemed like he had two touchdowns before anyone else did anything.
Yeah, he got the Sunday jump started right away, and went quiet in the second half, so it was kind of good. He got that out of the way. Yeah. But there were a ton of tight ends that really produced this week, but Kelce was probably the most notable.
Yeah,
maybe outside of Eifert.
Yeah, and really low owned too. I mean, I saw ownership levels on Travis Kelce, and unfortunately, I had no Kelce shares myself. I wish that I did, and then we saw another game we were talking about earlier, the early action. Davante Adams, everyone's sexy play of the week, stepping up into a bigger role, and he did get 8 targets, but didn't produce very much. Although, in cash games, it obviously didn't hurt you because everyone played Davante Adams and it didn't matter. But in tournaments, it was a viable fade, but not a whole lot of people went that way.
No, and I wish I would have a little more.
Yeah, same here.
He was probably the chalkiest value play of the weekend. And, he did get his targets, but those 2 Jones touchdowns were kind of disappointing. And I think something we could have actually anticipated just because of how week one always goes. But it was a little disappointing. But like you said, cash games didn't really hurt because everyone had them.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people were like I was. Every time James Jones scored a touchdown, whatever words you could think of that we're not going to repeat right now, screaming at your TV if you didn't have any James Jones. But definitely something to look forward to moving forward, because it's not like he's new to this offense. I mean, he is this season, but he obviously played there before, so he knows exactly how to work with Aaron Rodgers, and obviously they worked out pretty well. So, and I'm pretty sure he had a 3rd touchdown called back also. So, I mean, he was
yeah, he did.
Yeah, he could have been the highest score on the week or very close to it there. So, next game, the Colts in Buffalo. Those of us and a lot of us, we talked about it, how Buffalo's a top 5 defense, and they certainly looked that this week. Andrew Luck was certainly not worth paying for. He had at the end, he got some garbage time, got a couple touchdowns there late. T.Y. Hilton was the main target there, and I mean, Frank Gore got banged up as he has before, really did nothing. So I mean, outside of Frank Gore doing nothing, you had T.Y. Hilton do a little bit, but not paying off his salary. Luck got some garbage time touchdowns, but really the Colts offense just got shut down. Yeah,
and I think that's going to be something to look forward to, this season is Bills at home. I remember last season, they shut down Aaron Rodgers at home. Their defense is pretty stout, someone I'm going to be fading matchups against all season.
Yeah.
But, on the road, I want to see how that shapes out, just because, they are a different team at home.
Yeah, I mean, much like Seattle now, it seems like their offense or their defense is dominant at home. So,
yeah.
You mentioned here, of course, LaShawn McCoy for the Bills was a big letdown. I mean, it seemed to me that offensive line didn't look particularly great anyway, but McCoy wasn't a guy that I had many shares of anyway, and he just didn't look good. And Percy Harvin kind of stepped up while you saw Vontae Davis blanketing Sammy Watkins. So obviously Sammy Watkins being the number 1, like you mentioned there, is going to be a situation that's unfortunate for him because he's going to get top corners. Obviously, he's going to see very few that are as good as Vontae Davis, but I'm not quite expecting Percy Harvin to produce the way he did in this game. I mean, what was it, a 51-yard touchdown, I think? I mean, those are going to be few and far between for Harvin this year.
Yeah, you're basically just hoping he gets that home run ball and hits. Tournament play at best. Outside of Watkins and Harvin, there's not really much there. And, Harvin's not enough of a threat to take away some of the action from Watkins on that side. So he's going to be blanketed a ton this season, and it's going to be tough for him to score some points.
Yeah, absolutely. And then a guy that got off to a big start, obviously, with Travis Kelce catching touchdowns. Somebody had to be throwing him, and I don't think I heard a single person talking about how we needed to play Alex Smith this week, but he was one of the higher-scoring quarterbacks, and, I mean, once the 4 o'clock game started, he was by far above everyone else. Some other guys came up closer down at the end, but Jeremy Maclin, he five catch for 52 yards wasn't a great performance by DFS purposes, but he looked really good. And he looks like he's going to be an integral part of that offense still. But still, Alex Smith, of course, finds a way to throw 3 touchdown passes, none of them to a wide receiver. So that just continues on for another week. Can't imagine that lasts much longer with Maclin in the fold now. But, and Jamal Charles was good. He was quietly good. A guy that not a lot of people talked about. And, that's a tough defensive line he was going against. But he produced a pretty solid game.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, with Maclin coming in, I think he's going to help out everyone as a whole. He's definitely going to take down, a notch with his stats, but he's going to definitely help out Charles. And like Kelsey, obviously, we already saw that. And, Smith, I think it's going to be a nice tournament play for a lot of those guys.
Yeah.
With Charles being the lone cash game play each week.
Yeah, and definitely, it seems like, saying that he's a significant upgrade over Dwayne Bowe is probably an understatement because Dwayne Bowe, he's a possession receiver at best there.
Yeah.
Another guy, DeAndre Hopkins, had a huge game for the Texans. I guess it remains to be seen how much his role is. Now they're saying Aaron Foster possibly back next week, probably back week 3. So obviously he's the focal point of the offense when he's healthy. But at the same time, we saw 2 different quarterbacks in this game, and DeAndre Hopkins doing it all. So he definitely looked good, and he's a guy that another one of these guys not a lot of people were talking about. And you got to imagine he's probably going to have higher ownership than he rightfully should in week 2, especially if Aaron Foster comes back.
Yeah, and the fact that they're chasing games, he should be getting targeted a lot. And, Hoyer's decent enough to give him the ball, so should be a good look for week 2 and probably going forward. But like you said, it's going to be interesting once Foster comes back. I'll see if his targets drop just a little bit.
Yeah. I'm all aboard chasing targets and guys that are getting volume, but I'm not going to be chasing touchdowns. So yeah, I'm with you there. Well, that's kind of a wait and see. But Browns Jets. You talked about this week. We all talked about this week. Chris Ivory was one of the best values on the week, and he did not disappoint. And in fact, he's another guy who had a 3rd touchdown called back from a penalty. I was one of those ones. Hopefully my neighbors didn't have their windows open. I was not too happy about that one. But by the end, he got his 2 touchdowns, almost 100 yards. He didn't get much of the garbage time carries, which was a little bit disappointing. But, they were up by 3 touchdowns. No reason to let your – I guess he's the stud. Or he's definitely the stud running back. But you got to say Brandon Marshall, he looked good. And that play where he stripped the ball after an interception, I thought better than his touchdown grab. That was a hell of a play. You saw that. I saw it full speed. You kind of thought maybe he didn't really take it out, but he just ripped that ball out. That was one of the best plays of the weekend, if you ask me.
Yeah, that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, and for the Browns, nothing, because they're just terrible. Johnny Manziel got a shot, and he looked terrible. So
yeah, they made the Jets defense look pretty good, so I'll take that.
Yeah, another sexy pick this week was the Jets defense, and once Johnny Manziel came in, I knew I was happy about having them in my cash games because maybe there's people who are surprised at Johnny Manziel's performance. I'm certainly not one of them.
Nope.
Next up, Miami against the Redskins. This one seemed like, from betting purposes, from DFS purposes, all these, we know how bad Washington's defense was last year. It was awful. And, turns out they only score 1 offensive touchdown. They get a punt return for a touchdown, so the Miami defense paid off. Jarvis Landry, nobody even touched him on that play. It was an insane play. But the Redskins, offense still didn't look great, but that defense, I know it's only 1 week, and Miami's not an elite offense by any means, but they looked good in this game.
Yeah, they didn't look too bad. They held Miller in check for most of the game. He didn't touch the ball a ton. But, all those wide receivers that Miami has, which has been talked about before the season started with Tannehill back there, not a lot. They didn't get a lot going, which was kind of disappointing because if you went to this game to be a little bit contrarian, it didn't exactly pay off. And you figure Landry, if he didn't get that punt return, he would pretty much have nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And I can't imagine many people were out there touting Rashard Matthews as the one guy to catch a touchdown pass from Tannehill this week either. Next up is the Jaguars and Panthers. We knew how this was to begin with. This was a game that was ugly. Greg Olsen, you said, was the biggest disappointment from this game. If you ask me, I think he was the biggest disappointment on the entire week. He was the guy that seemed like he was going to be locked into a huge role. Once again, and I swear I'm not making this up, he also had a touchdown called back on an offensive pass interference, I believe it was, or maybe it was a holding. But either way, he got a touchdown called back. Another one of those guys that was a popular cash game play. I had him in my cash games. Had one catch that counted at least. And, he just was taken out of the offense, and then it seemed like Carolina was content to just slowly run the clock because it's not an elite offense anyway. I guess they didn't even really need to score that many points. But Greg Olsen, I'm not giving up on him. I know what type of volume this guy usually sees. Had over 1,000 yards last year, so I think that is more of an anomaly, and I think Greg Olsen may end up being a sneaky GPP type of play for next week because people are going to be recency biased. They're going to say, Greg Olsen screwed me. I'm done with him, but not me.
Yep, I agree there. In a different tempo game where the Panthers are actually throwing the ball a lot more, you'll see Olsen with more targets and touchdown opportunities.
Yeah, especially once they're facing a better offense than the Jags. And Blake Bortles, he was, I don't want to say he was terrible, but he did throw a pick six. He just... Yeah. He was better than Johnny Manziel, so good for him for that one. Rams and Seahawks scored 65 points, as you pointed out here. Seattle's defense was a popular play, and rightfully so, especially on some sites, some smaller sites especially. They were priced the same or even lower than some other defenses, which just didn't make a whole lot of sense. Obviously, they got the Tyler Lockett punt return touchdown, so that helped. But, as a whole, they just didn't really look great. But you mentioned here, especially Benny Cunningham was one of those guys. We knew he was going to have an increased role. Only had 2.8 yards per carry, but 5 catches for 85 yards. So if you're one of the people that took the chance on him, then he definitely paid off.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised with Cunningham. I didn't think he would do that well.
Yeah.
And really, the Rams as a whole, they didn't really have a lot going on offense. You figure Austin had that end-around play, and then he had the punt return. But still, overall, Seattle didn't look impressive. And I think they really lucked out with the 2 defensive scores.
Yeah, definitely. And watching Richard Sherman, obviously this is one game, but I didn't think he looked particularly good at all. Got away with a blatant pass interference in the end zone, got burned a couple other times. It seemed like every time someone was making a play, he's just standing there just outside of the play. So obviously not a total knock on Richard Sherman. I love him, but he wasn't a factor in this game.
Yeah.
Next up, talking about some afternoon games, Broncos-Ravens, if you loaded up on this one, because we've seen some games in the last few years even, last 2 years with these two teams, some shootouts. This one was everything but a shootout. We saw, if you played Brandon McManus, if you're a fan of the kicker, which I absolutely despise the kicker, I hate that in daily fantasy and all fantasy, but Brandon McManus, if you played him, he outscored most of the quarterbacks this week. So that right there, if that doesn't tell you that the kicker needs to go, from my perspective, then I don't know what else will.
Yeah, I was lucky to have him in a few lineups, but
yeah, it was rough. C.J. Anderson, they said hurt his toe. A lot of people over here freaking out that C.J. Anderson's not going to be a part of the offense, blah, blah, blah. But, this is the Ravens defense. It's a perennial top 10 defense. And, especially, they haven't really indicated what time of the game, how early that injury happened. And, they don't have a whole lot of depth at running back anymore. They got rid of Monty Ball. So, I think C.J. Anderson, assuming he's healthy, will be all right. That's a tough matchup for anyone. I'd be more worried about, the wide receivers and Peyton Manning, because Peyton Manning, I saw a stat this morning over his last, I believe it was 8 games, averaging like 222 passing yards and a passer rating or QBR under 45. So it's not to say that this is the beginning of the end. That's all speculative, but he didn't look good in this one. And that was a tough matchup, but we'll have to see once he gets the softer D.
Yeah, that could be something to look forward to for the rest of the year, because if Manning's a no-go and playing pretty average, that means Thomas is not going to pay off that price tag that he has. As well as, Emmanuel Sanders had a pretty decent game, getting his receptions in, but you can't rely on that week to week.
Yep. Yeah, it seems like Emmanuel Sanders is more of the security blanket now for Peyton Manning. And those of us, including myself, I had a couple shares on Daniels, thinking maybe he gets involved, but I think he only had 1 catch, so
yeah,
really nothing there. Looking over to the next games here, Chargers-Lions was a very Detroit type of game. They got up big. They looked great on offense. They looked great on defense. Amir Abdullah looked uncoverable. And, his speed was just absolutely incredible. And then Phillip Rivers does what he usually does when the team's already 4-7, and then just comes back from a deficit. But it was almost too late, but he pulled it off. So, but the key guy here, I think, 2 guys really. Stevie Johnson had a huge game. It was a value play that some people were on. And Danny Woodhead as well in that passing game. We've seen him. I think Danny Woodhead scored twice. So he was another one of those DFS darlings. And San Diego, now that they have a running game, although it wasn't great this week, that's still a tough matchup against Detroit as far as the running game goes. Well, should be this season, but definitely a lot of cheap guys on this San Diego side. Keenan Allen tied the team record with receptions in this game too.
Yeah, Allen was very impressive, and that's something that was good to see because last year we expected, this upside all the time,
Yep.
but he didn't really deliver. Very inconsistent. I'm hoping Allen becomes the focal point in the offense. Like you said, I think with Melvin Gordon being there, it should help things out because they were pretty one-dimensional over the last few seasons. And Stevie Johnson, he was that great pivot play if you were going to fade Adams because he got in the end zone and really hit his value there.
Yep. And I mean, he came close to another score too. I think he got tackled like the 2 or 3 yard line as well. So that was a nice one. And on that in that same game, we saw Calvin Johnson with the long 28-yard reception early in the game, and then he just did nothing. I don't think he had another catch until the fourth quarter. And I mean, Matt Stafford looked good early. I mean, good enough, I guess. Effective, efficient, I guess you could say. But then at the end, made a lot of mistakes. He looked terrible in the second half, which is very Matt Stafford of him. So. Amir Abdullah, people were worried about snap count. I think that I don't have the stat in front of me, but Joyke Bell, I think, still saw more snaps, but Abdullah was certainly a big part of that game. And I mean, he's the big play threat. We know Joyke Bell's the volume guy.
Yeah, I mean, Abdullah, I believe, outtouched Bell, even though he saw less snaps. But he's a burner. This guy's making plays. 7.1 yards per carry on only like 7 touches out of the running game. And then we saw what he can do out of the backfield in the passing game. So Abdullah really paid off if you took the risk on him. Like I said, I didn't have too much of him because of the volume issue. I wasn't sure. So
yeah,
I wish I did have more.
I was the same as you there. I was kind of hesitant when they were talking about Joyke Bell, but I'll tell you one value play that did pay off in a huge way. Carson Palmer, over 300 yards, 3 scores. And Andre Ellington didn't have a bad game either. Only 12 carries, but we've seen this in Arizona. You don't ever see guys getting 25, 30 carries in this. This is the passing attack. And, I mean, the fact that he got in the end zone is solid. And we saw John Brown, another one of those value plays early in the game, scored the first touchdown, got off to a great start. So, I mean, Carson Palmer, assuming he can stay healthy, and hopefully he does. I mean, I don't know how much longer his salary will be down where it is, but, I mean, that was a hell of a performance by him.
Yeah, I was actually at that game yesterday, and like I said, I mean, the passing game really opened up things for Ellington. He had 5.8 yards per carry. He looked good, and I think each week it's going to be a guessing game with who gets the touchdowns and the wide receivers. But overall, I mean, they play the Bears next week. I think that's going to be another secondary to target with Palmer there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then on the Saints side, saw that the New Orleans Saints running backs got targeted 15 times. Ingram had 8 for 98. So that right there tells you if C.J. Spiller, assuming he stays on the field for more than 2 plays each game without getting injured, then, I mean, we know what type of playmaker he is when he gets the ball in open field. And we saw Darren Sproles, who's not even as talented of a player as C.J. Spiller as far as just pure talent. So, I mean, C.J. Spiller is going to be the guy to watch. And Mark Ingram's pretty cheap next week also.
Yep, I definitely like Ingram next week.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's going to be a popular play, I can imagine.
Yeah.
And then two games that I'm not personally being a Bengals fan. I'm not surprised that they dominated the Raiders. Tyler Eifert looked absolutely amazing in his return here. 9 catches, had over 100 yards, caught 2 touchdowns. Neither one was that easy of a grab either, especially the second one. Guy draped all over him. Dalton looked good. I mean, it's 1 week. It's certainly not a playoff game. And that's not to say that he's a must-play, but, I mean, he looked good enough for GPP play, and he put up good numbers even with A.J. Green having a down game. And Green was a guy that I feel like I probably targeted a little more heavily than I should have. He got targeted in the end zone, but didn't come down with it. But it's got to be an encouraging thing for this offense. Jeremy Hill got a couple touchdowns and looked great on the ground. And, I mean, that's a pretty tough line. The defense for the Raiders, not good, but, I mean, you got some big names on that line, though.
Yeah, I wish I would have gotten a little more out of A.J. Green. But like you said, I mean, Dalton had a good day. I mean, he completed a good amount of his passes. And, I think he is a guy to look at for week to weeks when he's playing bad defenses because, that's really all he hit last season. And then those tough matchups came and nothing.
That's what he does. That's the struggle of Bengals fans. But it's definitely nothing new. But something that is new, Marcus Mariota. I mean, you blinked and you saw this guy with 3 touchdowns. Ended up 4 touchdowns. And I saw a stat that said he was the first quarterback ever to have 4 touchdowns in the first half of his first performance. And, I mean, this guy looked incredible. He looked just like he did, aside from the running aspect, I guess, as much. But, I mean, he just looked as comfortable, I guess, as he did playing for Oregon. I mean, this guy, you're obviously not expecting 4 touchdowns out of him, maybe ever again this season, but he looked great.
Yeah, this was a shocker. Probably one of the biggest shockers of the weekend. I mean, he hit all his targets too. I mean, I think the coaching staff for Tennessee there did a pretty good job calling his strengths, and he spread the ball out pretty well. I mean, Walker caught his touchdown. So Wright had a monster day, and then Sankey. I mean, Sankey had a really good day out of the backfield too.
Yep. Yeah, and this was an offense that just absolutely dominated, put up the most points of any team. And Jameis Winston, on the other hand, made his debut by his first pass for a touchdown for the other team. So I don't like Jameis Winston. I'm not saying he's a terrible player. I'm just not a believer. I think he's a Jamarcus Russell type for me. I know it's easy to say after the first week where he struggled, but I mean, check my Twitter. I never liked Jameis Winston. But either way, I think that's a wait and see with him. He does have more. He has good weapons when they're healthy. Obviously, Mike Evans wasn't healthy in this one. Didn't even play. But once he gets back, you got to imagine he'll get more comfortable. I don't think he has the upside that Mariota has, which, once again, hindsight 2020. Easy to say that now. But to be honest, I didn't have shares of either guy. And I did have more Doug Martin than I'd like to admit. But you also didn't anticipate this team being down by 3 touchdowns, 8 minutes into the game or whatever it was.
Yeah, that was the issue with Martin because, I mean, he ran the ball well, but he only had 12 attempts on the ground. And, he's not a big receiving type, so they took him out pretty early, so he wasn't playing a lot. And, after the first half, it kind of killed whatever he was going to put up in this game altogether. So that was a little bit disappointing because the whole tempo of the game just took Martin out of play.
Yeah, that was definitely frustrating there for Martin owners. But, I mean, it seems like that might be a trend here because, I mean, if you're losing by 4 touchdowns to the Titans, good luck hanging with some better teams. So we'll see on that one. But Doug Martin might be a guy that I'm going to kind of avoid until I see at least the team play well because, I mean, they look terrible. Outside of that, Austin Seferian-Jenkins had 2 touchdowns. Another one of those tight ends that I saw him mentioned sparingly, and by that I mean 2 guys out of 100 were on him. I have no shares, but those who did, I mean, I think he put up 31 points on DraftKings. I'm not sure of his FanDuel points, but he's on quite a few of the top rosters in all the tournaments that are ending tonight too. So you don't expect 2 touchdowns again, but he was obviously a factor.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a couple DK lineups where they had 2 tight ends, one in the flex and one, at the tight end spot. That's a pretty bold move, and it probably paid off just because of how many tight ends, went off this weekend.
Yeah, that's a viable strategy at times. I've tried it. One time I had success with it. It wasn't $1 million success, but I mean, if you're making a lot of lineups, I don't think it's a bad way to go. But also, don't expect this type of production out of tight ends every week because it's just not going to happen. And then the Sunday night game started off. It was a complete snoozer. It was a 53-point total or 52, wherever you looked, and we watched this game. It was field goal, and then the Cowboys just imploded at the end of the first half. Threw a pick 6, had another turnover, and then Dez Bryant leaves. Now we find out that he's out for 4 to 6. Some people speculating more weeks than that, getting a screw put in his foot. But then Tony Romo just did what he does in the fourth quarter. I mean, love him or hate him, he just did it. And without Dez Bryant, goes down in just minute and a half. I mean, it's the Giants' fault. They did it to themselves by terrible clock management. But me being an outsider that's not a fan of either team, I did have some Romo shares, so I didn't mind that ending.
Yeah, I mean, Romo really paid off towards the end. Got his 3 touchdowns, and Witten was a big factor for the offense there. And I actually liked him coming into the season because Murray was gone. He was definitely going to get his red zone looks.
Yeah.
And now with Bryant out, he's got to be a featured wideout, / tight end, whatever you want to call him, in that offense. It's just going to be interesting to see who picks up the slack over the next few weeks, whether they lean on Randall in the run game or Terrence Williams steps up.
Yeah. And like you mentioned with Witten, I mean, with all these tight ends everybody's hyped on now, we've seen Witten doing this for years. Like you mentioned, of course, Dez Bryant out now, so he's going to be a guy that's going to be a top 5 guy for me just about every week until Dez Bryant comes back. Because, I mean, you almost knew that pass was going to Jason Witten at the end of the game because who else are you going to rely on? You got no timeouts. You almost have to throw it to the end zone. And you even see him get hit twice. They still couldn't take him down. So,
well, according to the Giants, I think the Cowboys had about 4 or 5 timeouts in that fourth quarter. So,
well, yeah, that may be. But had they just run the ball like they were supposed to, then I mean, it's fun to see these teams that beat themselves and they want to blame everyone else. But that one's on you, Tom Coughlin. You might not be getting an extra. You already got your Super Bowls, so just take the fall for when you make stupid mistakes. That's my take on that one. But all right, that's going to wrap it up for us here. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Got a lot of other great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.